and welcome to the Total Soccer Show Weekend Review. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who they said was going to be fired after this weekend no matter what happened.
What?
And yet here he still is. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
You're not meeting with the board anymore?
I'm not meeting with the board.
All right, that's good. That's good.
We're going to talk Jose Mourinho later.
Mm-hmm.
We have.
I was a little nervous because we're doing the weekend review on Monday night. Does that mean you did meet with the board and I got the dreaded vote of confidence?
I met with potential other co-hosts this afternoon instead. Yeah.
And their agents said they weren't interested?
Pretty much.
So then you had to look at everybody who was left and you thought, yeah, I'll stick with him.
Still this guy.
All right.
Still this guy.
Yeah.
We'll talk Man United Newcastle later on.
I think we already did.
First, let's talk about a game that had the same number of goals as Man United 3, Newcastle 2.
Just as competitive and dramatic.
But all in one direction.
Yeah.
The US women's national team, in the second game of the CONCACAF Championship, also World Cup qualifiers, beat Panama 5-0.
Yeah, they did.
It was very convincing very quickly.
It was.
Yeah.
Maybe not very quickly because there was
5 minutes in.
Well, I just mean there was like the miscontrol at the start that was a little bit dodgy.
Casey Short nearly had, an England v San Marino moment, which I guess is a reference only I get, but...
Yeah, I know what you mean, though. It was like she was supposed to do what they did the first game where you play long. Instead, she held it a little bit too long, had to cut it back, then almost lost the ball. Then it looked like it was going out of bounds. She tried to save it, and in saving it, she would have played to the path of, two Panamanian players?
Yep.
Instead, it went out of bounds, which maybe speaks to don't have 7 players line up at midfield and sprint forward for the kickoff. Maybe, just maybe.
US women's national team lines up in both of these CONCACAF Women's Championship games so far as if they're playing an onside kick to both sides.
I thought, yeah, exactly. I thought about that, and then I thought about this is the soccer equivalent of the haka, that it's just we're going to send everybody forward and we're going to terrify the opponent within 1 second of the whistle blowing.
Well, it kind of worked.
Kind of.
So Sam Lewis scored after 5 minutes on a corner kick.
Yep.
Which was very similar to the corner kick that Carly Lloyd scored on in the same game. So we're not going to go through all the goals because this really was a walkover for the women's national team. But you definitely noticed a trend on corner kicks, right?
Yeah, it's not quite the same sequence of runs that we saw against Mexico, and it's certainly not the same personnel making those runs.
Yeah,
but here,
only 2 of 11 starters in this game, Ertz and Dahlkamper, were the only holdovers from the first game.
And Julia Ertz was making very similar runs to that first game against Mexico. It was sort of the near post, you loop around, you're there. And she almost was there for this goal, but Sam Lewis instead is the one to get the header. But it was that sort of same Alex Morgan run from deep that we saw against Mexico. Then you had Carly Lloyd drifting to the back post. I believe in this case it was Morgan Bryan who was making the clear-out run. That happened for both of these goals, for the first and second goal. First time it goes to Sam Lewis, second time it goes to Carly Lloyd.
And not to go too hard on Panama, but the fact that these corner kick routines were so very, very, very effective, I think is one of the really telling things about the game, right? The US, to me, just looked literally more professional, which I think is probably true.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't... I hope this doesn't come across as an insult, but maybe it will, and if it does, then I apologize. But I do think that for some teams like Panama, maybe you don't have as much time or you don't have as much money in the federation to allow you to have camps and training facilities. And
well, we know that was the case with Trinidad and Tobago.
Exactly,
I actually don't know what Panama's preparations were like.
But it felt to me like maybe their focus was on how we're going to defend, how we're going to play, and not necessarily having the luxury that I would say the U.S. women did of let's design some set pieces, let's work on a lot of set pieces.
Yeah.
And I think that showed that it feels like the U.S. consistently have a set pattern of play that they're going to do on set pieces, and thus far it seems to be working.
And the truth is, the US is not just busy qualifying for the World Cup and planning to win the CONCACAF Championship. They're also planning for the future, right? So those set pieces are, in place for the future when things get more competitive. What they did in the first 10 minutes, according to Jill Ellis, is planning for the future.
It's weird. It's very strange.
This had me very confused. So what happened is Hayley Mace, who's a UCLA player, she's listed as a kind of a utility player in many positions. She was supposedly starting as a centre-back alongside Dahlkamper in a 4-3-3. Game kicks off. She's playing centre forward alongside Carly Lloyd, right? So I thought either US Soccer's just lying to us or Jill Ellis is doing a Juan Carlos Osorio tribute act. Asked about it afterwards, because she only did it for the first 10 minutes, then she went back in the back four. Jill Ellis said, this was us practicing for in the future when we were like a goal down and we're desperate, this is a thing we're going to do. So why not do it for the first 10 minutes against Panama?
Number one, that's sort of depressing because it implies the only time that we're going to be in a position where like the opposition is going to be really going for it and up for it is in the first 10 minutes. So we may as well do that. But I think we also had a little bit of a conversation off air about whether or not this was we're just going to try this to see if it could work one day, or if it was maybe Juan Carlos Osorio moving stuff around. And I would say the reason why I think it was maybe let's just try this tactic just so we have some practice with it is because it did feel like they were told to play as though they were chasing the game in those first 5 to 10 minutes, because it was as soon as they would get the ball back, it was turning and looking long every single time. There was no real delay. It was a lot of get that ball forward as fast as you can.
I mean, there's literally a quote as well from Jill Ellis from a Seth Vitali article from goal.com where she says, we're training for situations and we use the first 10 minutes to do that. But I would say it had the interesting knock-on effect of sort of breaking down Panama early, right? They didn't let Panama get 10 people behind the ball and then we'd have to try and pass through them. Right. If you go long ball early, it's like ugly if you do it the whole game, but you put pressure on them easily in the first 10 minutes. So it had the knock-on effect of winning the game, which we would have done anyway.
Probably.
Yeah. But it happened faster.
It does also give them, like, if you're Panama and suddenly the U.S. is going long every time, that might not be a thing you've prepared for, and then maybe you adjust to that in those first 10 minutes, and then they change it again on you, and things get a little more complicated.
It's also a display of strength, right? It's like kind of why the Empire...
Listeners, Daryl is flexing his bicep while saying this.
Oh, where my bicep should be.
Such as it is, yeah.
Such as it is. I was going to say it's why the Empire uses the Death Star to destroy Alderaan, right? It's like a big, massive display of strength to be like, hey, look what we can do if we want to.
There's a psychologist out there who would, I feel like, write a paper on you going from your bicep to the Death Star destroying a planet.
The psychologist would just write nerd on a piece of paper
that could be.
And then sign it at the bottom.
That could be.
Case closed.
The other thing that
That's not how psychologists work.
It's not. Case closed.
This is a lawyer psychologist.
Sure. And maybe a cop psychologist too. I would say the other thing that confused me was that, as you said, it was only 2 of the same starters. So I just don't know where you go from here, because it's also worth noting Mexico smashed Trinidad 4-1. That means Trinidad have lost both of their first 2 games by an aggregate score of 7-1. So that's usually the game that the U.S., who've already won their first 2, you usually see the kind of non-starters coming in and getting minutes. Yeah. But they've already done that. So I will be curious to see how we go against Trinidad.
So I get the reasoning. Jerry said it's 5 games in 13 days, assuming there's a semi-final. And actually, even if we lose the semi-final, we play the third place game, right? So it's definitely, at this point, 5 games in 13 days. But yeah, you're right. So maybe you just rotate again. I'm going to guess, say, Ertz and Del Campo don't play the Trinidad game. But it's interesting, like, does Carly Lloyd play or does Alex Morgan play, right?
Or is she going to go full steam ahead against Trinidad as the revenge game? As I speculated they might. There we go.
I don't think so. It's not a fair comparison.
I don't care, Daryl.
You're just out for revenge.
Indeed.
Oh. All right, well, 5-0.
As though it's Trinidad's fault.
5-0 to the US women's national team.
Yes.
Shall we skip on over to the Premier League? No?
We should first note, though, that game that I mentioned against Trinidad will be, Wednesday night, October 10th, the 1-year anniversary of the USA failing to beat Trinidad.
Yep. We'd be very surprised if they failed to beat Trinidad this time around.
We would. We certainly would. But either way, as you said, they've booked passage to the next round, which means they are very likely to qualify for the World Cup.
Yeah, if you're not familiar, they win the semi-final, they qualify for the World Cup. Right? They lose the semi-final but win the third place playoff game, they qualify for the World Cup. Really, I'm already thinking about Canada in the final, if I'm honest.
Unless Canada throw that game to make it dramatic in the knockout round, huh? Nah.
It's possible.
They may have already played by the time we record this. They certainly won their first game. Yeah. So I think they're in a pretty strong position.
There we go. Okay, shall we move to the Premier League now?
Let's do it.
The big game of the week has to be, even though it finished 0-0, Liverpool against Manchester City.
Yes.
So what we're going to be doing on this show, we're going to talk about the three big games that we made sure to watch and have some tactical analysis of. Yep. First one's Liverpool, Man City. I'm going to put this to you, Taylor.
Sure.
A lot of people complaining that this game was boring. I would say to them, watch the first 10 minutes again. Yeah. This game was on fire for the first 10 minutes, and then it became tactical, but still interesting in a very latest chapter of the Klopp versus Guardiola saga.
I'm going to say this is a good example, though, of a game where I think it can be both exciting and boring at the same time. Because I did have those moments.
More interesting? I can't do it.
Oh, boy.
I can't put my toe in.
Oh, boy. Because I did have those moments. And now, worth noting, I had already played a game at this point, so maybe I was just fatigued from that. But I did have that sort of the inability to focus because it felt like there was a lot of they don't have the ball. Oh, now they've got, they don't have the ball. It was a lot of turnover, and it didn't feel like you ever had that many sustained attacks where it was a lot of movement and you felt like, oh, okay, something's coming close. I think there ended up only being like one shot on target in the first half. Maybe there were 3 shots total, something like that. So I do understand why people maybe weren't as enthralled with this game as it might. It felt like it was going to be, I think the commentator said, like, this game felt like it was going to be the one that finished 3-2, and the Man United game felt like it was going to be the one that finished 0-0, and instead it was the opposite. But with that said, forgive me my long-winded ramble, but really,
it's why we tried to replace you, but it's really why we love you.
There we go. But this is also why I'm glad we're doing this approach to the weekend review, is because I went back and rewatched big chunks of this game when it wasn't live, and to see how they kind of set up and adapt.
You didn't ask them to replay it for
I did not. That would have been fun. But to see how they set up, I feel like from the outset to counter the counter almost.
Who's they?
Both teams.
Yeah.
I felt like they both adapted what they were trying to do to their opponent and to their levels of fitness as well.
Okay, so I agree with you, and I think we should get into that.
Okay.
So how did each team adapt? What did they do differently to what they normally do? I have my own answers, but I'm kind of hoping that yours match, so we don't have to have a discussion about it.
Sure. I think for Man City, the thing that I noticed, and then I will admit I watched the match of the day as well on top of all this, and Alan Shearer agreed with me, so that made me feel good, is that anytime City lost the ball, their fullbacks were very focused on staying back.
Yes.
They did not ever get caught 30 yards up the field, 40 yards up the field. It felt like Mendy especially, you would see him sort of as soon as the ball was lost, dropping back 15 yards and looking to fill space to make sure there was no counter.
I would double down on that and say that even as soon as the ball was played forward by Mendy, the left back, or Kyle Walker, the right back, you didn't very often see them overlap. Right? Even the late in the game, Sané wins that penalty. The ball, I think, starts with Mendy playing it forward. Against other opponents, you would then see Mendy join the attack, right? Or if Guardiola's doing one of his weird things, you'd see him then go and play centre midfield.
Exactly.
Instead, he stayed at left back. Kyle Walker stayed at right back. Man City kept their defensive shape.
Yeah. And the reason why that's so important for people who are unfamiliar with the lethalness of Liverpool's counterattack is that as soon as you start shifting players or getting players out of position, you're opening up gaps. And it's not just that Liverpool are very good at exploiting that gap. It's almost to say that they're good at exploiting the gap that then is created from exploiting that initial gap. And it's as soon as they go down that right channel when Benjamin Mendy's caught forward, then everybody shifts over and then suddenly there's space in the middle and Firmino takes that. And then when they shift to cover Firmino, then there's openings on the left side and it becomes this weird, no matter what you do, you're always plugging a hole and it's too late and then Liverpool are 4-0 ahead. In this case, because they kept everybody back, it really stifled what Liverpool were able to do.
So I want to double down on this. So I would say if you rewatch the first 10 minutes, as I feel like we both did, but probably most people aren't as nerdy as us, right? But Liverpool did their genuine high press and won the ball back off Man City high up the field. But when that ball turned over, where normally there are gaps for Liverpool players to run into, this time, I think it was twice, like in my notes, I think it's the 3rd minute and the 6th minute. It turns over, they get the ball to Sadio Mane, he's in the box, but then he's swarmed by Manchester City defenders because they're all still there, right? So they did what they normally do, but they didn't have the open space to run into that they usually have. Man City were very respectful of the threat that Liverpool posed.
Now, here's where I might disagree with you a little bit because I think Liverpool did that in the beginning.
I agree.
Okay.
They did it for the first 10 minutes, and then either Liverpool backed off, or it might be a bit column A, column B, right? Or Man City got much, much better at playing through the Liverpool press.
I will give credit where credit is due. I was really struggling to figure out why Liverpool weren't able to do what they usually do. And Jermaine Janus pointed out that they weren't doing the full press after those first 15 minutes or so. Yeah. It was a half press.
I should be on Match of the Day.
You should be. You spotted this one. But he broke down one segment in particular where basically...
But you need to play for Newcastle first.
Yes, that's all you need. And, be good at analysis, get very... I always notice how trim those guys are. It's just like, they're always sitting with good posture, but there's no ounces of fat there.
They're all just breathing in for an hour and a half.
That could be. They do feel like maybe there's some Spanx in there, and there's nothing wrong with that, because I would do that too. But he was pointing out that there's one sequence when Man City, I think Ederson got the ball 4 or 5 times, and Firmino basically just kind of stood 18 15 yards off of him and didn't really put that pressure on. And it did feel like against other teams in other situations, they would have immediately put the pressure and tried to force them into long balls. And I think maybe it was that Liverpool didn't want to get caught out and they themselves didn't want to get stretched. Or maybe, and this is what Jermaine Janis was saying, is that maybe Liverpool are just a little bit leggy. They've played a lot of games, and maybe they just knew they couldn't go full speed for 90 minutes and had to sort of adapt what they were doing.
I think everything is correct. Like, it's things can be two or three or four things in this case. There are many reasons why Liverpool can't do what they normally do. The one extra reason I'd lay on top, and I'm hoping the match of the day guys didn't get this one, is...
That's all the match of the day notes I have. I just wanted to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, no, I think it's good to do that.
I want to cite my sources.
Yeah, no, I think it's good to cite sources. Do you remember against... who did Man City lose to in the Champions League? Lyon? Where it was Fernandinho was the only outlet for the defenders, so they just marked Fernandinho and pressured Fernandinho and won the ball off Fernandinho. I noticed every time it was, say, John Stones and Laporte have the ball coming out the back, they always had, as well as the fullback staying home, not bombing up the field, so you had two wide options, they had not only Fernandinho in central midfield, Bernardo Silva would also come back and be a deep option in central midfield. So I think one of the concessions Guardiola made to what Klopp does is to make sure that when they were playing the ball out of the back, there were more short options than usual.
Yes.
Right? Silva alongside Fernandinho. So if you mark off Fernandinho, Bernardo Silva's still open.
Yeah. And to that extent, like there were these moments where you would see them kind of cough up possession both sides back and forth, and they would try to break and it wouldn't come off, and then the other team would try to break and it wouldn't come off for the reasons we've discussed. But I think it's worth noting as to why this was an interesting game and an exciting game in my opinion is because when that pass to Bernardo Silva was on, and if it was between two defenders, that pass got hit. Like it wasn't just that everybody was sloppy for no good reason. When there were opportunities to play a 40-yard pass that split three players, that pass got played and made it there successfully. It was just that more often than not, that pass was blocked off.
If you're a lover of long cross-field balls going directly to players' feet, this was the game for you. I feel like there was a lot of that happening. There'd be pressure on one side of the field, they'd switch it, and it would be a beauty of a switch and a beauty of a settle every time. But it was 0-0.
It was.
And the reason it was 0-0 is Mr. Riyad Mahrez.
So this is I lied. I didn't have this in my notes, but Alan Shearer made the argument that this really was, if Riyad Mahrez finishes that penalty, this is like a masterclass for Man City.
Absolutely.
But because he doesn't,
So actually, maybe let's talk about this. So the idea that they did win the penalty, they could have scored it if it was a little lower. It would have been Man City winning 1-0 away at Liverpool, and it would have been Man City winning away because Pep Guardiola had gone there and played, I wouldn't say quite defensively, like in a bunker. They're not like the Panama women's national team,
He played pragmatic. He didn't park the bus.
But this would have been new for Guardiola because in the past we've always seen him say, this is my philosophy, this is the way I'm doing it, and there's always a high element of risk. I want to say this is the first time I've ever seen him rein it in a little bit, and it felt like the correct thing to do, and it almost felt, it didn't feel un-Pep to do it. It felt just like the smart choice.
Yeah, because it's not just sitting inside your own 18 or right at the top of the 18 and frustrating. It was still trying to play. It was still trying to be spread out and have those long balls, have those diagonals, have some really quick interplay, but then just still really focusing on negating a very potent attack. And you look at the fact that Mohamed Salah didn't look very impressive. He struggled to get
Didn't have space to run into.
Exactly, and to find opportunities to shoot. Same thing for Sadio Mane, same thing for Roberto Firmino. And so I think defensively it was an amazing game. And then, when you make the changes he made, he brings on Leroy Sané. Leroy Sané draws that penalty correctly as well, I would say. Definitely a penalty for me.
Is it even worth debating that?
No, Virgil van Dijk came out and said, I shouldn't have done that. I won't make that tackle again.
So he slid to try and either nick the ball away or block a shot or a cross, and just his knee caught Sané's knee, right?
Yeah.
And so
it was
a penalty.
It was a frustrating one where
it was close. It was very close, but it was a foul.
Yeah. I had a frustrating conversation with a friend whose name I will not name, who was basically saying, but look, their feet, there's no contact. He just slides his feet and falls over. And I was like, look up where he hits him in the knee and blocks his knee from moving forward, and thus he falls over.
Please tell me that friend's name.
I will not.
After we're done recording.
That's fine.
Okay, so then the drama is Gabriel Jesus, he's come on for Aguero, right, is standing at the penalty spot, ready to take this kick. Riyad Mahrez comes over, has a word. It turns out afterwards that essentially Mahrez has been authorised by Guardiola to say, I am the penalty taker.
Yes.
Mahrez steps up, puts it over.
So he does. Here's the thing that I want to get to. Sorry, I can barely contain myself. So you're right. Guardiola said, I made this choice. It was, but then later confirmed that he did not know that Riyad Mahrez has a pretty bad penalty record.
I've heard this too. He just said that I've seen him hit them in training all the time, and he's been really impressive. I see Mahrez taking the penalty training, and it gave me a lot of confidence. He doesn't know about Mahrez missing all these penalties actually when he's playing games.
All right, now this is conspiracy theory, Taylor. If you watch the clip again of Guardiola saying this was my choice, there's definitely a momentary, it's just that little look of somebody who's improving, of like, they ask him, like, what was the deal there? And he sort of does the, Daryl, if you can see me do it, I can't really convey this to listeners, but it was sort of a like, it was me. It was definitely my idea. Like, you can see his eyes get a little bit big. He's like, oh, no, it was me. It's my fault. I said that. It's on me. It's on me. And
in the negotiator, was it up and to the right?
Yeah, something like that. I forget which one it is. But yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, oh yeah. It's I can never remember which
Sam
one it's
Jackson,
supposed to be.
Kevin Spacey?
Yeah, and then Paul Giamatti screams, that's a lie. I think there's an expletive in there too, but yes.
If he'd been in that press conference, Giamatti would have screamed, it's a lie.
Maybe. I mean, and maybe it was the case that Riyad Mahrez was authorized. I feel like that would be a much more contentious conversation, and Gabriel Jesus would have done more than just raise his eyebrows.
I think if it was just whoever wins this argument, with no input from Guardiola, whoever wins this argument about the penalty, I think Jesus stays in the fight longer than he does.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
It's a credit to Jesus, though, that all he does is raise the eyebrows, he walks away, and then when that penalty gets missed, he reacts a little bit. It's David Silva who, like, emphatic, puts his hands on his head and is like, what has happened here? I can't believe it.
One thing I did notice, though, no one put their arm around Mahrez. No one, like, Jesus was right next to him, right? Because he was, like, I guess, ready for rebounds. There's no rebound unless it comes back off the top of the stadium.
Yeah, right.
He just sort of looked the other way and walked away. I didn't.
Yeah.
So it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't particularly supportive.
I mean, oh, you mean the reaction?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because the penalty was horrible.
You think Mahrez got the reaction he deserved?
Yeah, a little bit. So
there's not much else to say to it, except I'll be interested next time Man City win a penalty and Mahrez and Jesus are both on the field. I'll be interested to see what happens.
I will too. My final note on this game, I would just like to confirm, because it was a conversation we had, I think, last season. Yeah, Joe Gomez isn't a right back. I'll just throw that one in there too.
At least he's a much better centre-back than he is a right back.
There was a few moments, I think there was like 3 sequences in like a 10-minute span that led me to that note where it was like, I think he dribbled out of bounds once, then he got split by 2 players, and he just, like, he didn't need to commit. He goes charging forward to try to cut off a pass, and he just gets 1-2. Yeah. And there's just a few moments like that.
As well. Didn't he have a weird slice clearance that almost was a Man City goal?
So there was just some moments there where I was like, all right, Trent Alexander-Arnold, you probably don't need to worry.
So my guess is, I know Trent Alexander-Arnold got dragged out of position and then roasted by Eden Hazard last week.
Yeah.
I didn't see the Liverpool-Napoli game, but I've heard that he did not have a good game against Napoli. So my guess is that Klopp is half thinking, okay, it's that teenage thing where you suddenly hit a run of bad form, which happens to every teenager, right? Plus...
it's insane that we're saying that. Like, every teenager when they're playing in the Premier League, it's like, yeah, I can't say that I'm really familiar with that, but yeah, that sounds about right.
But then also on top of that, if Liverpool are doing what Man City did as well and saying, we're going to be a bit more respectful of the threat that Man City pose, it makes sense to bring Lovren into the centre. He had that one great tackle. Remember that big block? I can't remember who it was on, but it looked like the Bobby Moore tackle against Jorginho in 1970.
That was one of the ones. That was one of the ones where I forget who it was as well, but whoever it was beats Joe Gomez, and then Dejan Lovren comes across and makes that tackle. But yeah, that was one of the moments where I was like, ooh, Joe, not great.
Yeah. Do you know the Bobby Moore tackle I'm talking about, or is that only famous in England?
It's not only famous in England, but no, I don't. Okay. Or like I know enough of you referencing it on multiple occasions to know of it.
It's basically the same. It's like that, not slide, but just like stamp tackle that's so authoritative, and then you come away with the ball.
Yes.
So anyway, to have Lovren and Van Dijk central, and Joe Gomez, who didn't really get or didn't offer much going forward, at least, it's a more conservative approach. Right?
It absolutely is.
All right.
In the end, I guess both teams will be okay with that. You have to believe that maybe Liverpool would have preferred to come away with 3 points. But, against City, 1 point will do.
But I'll bet when Riyad Mahrez stepped up for that penalty kick, if you offered every Liverpool fan in the world, if you offered them, how about if this game finishes in a draw, they would say yes.
Yep. I would say so. Especially since I think that the penalty is called in the 85th minute. Oof. So, I think they probably definitely would have.
All right, so we've got... some other games to
talk.
Sure
do.
I mean, if you saw the episode title, you know what the games are.
You don't know what I'm going to title this episode.
That's true. But first, today's show is sponsored by the fine people at Seatgeek with their app. I do not have the app open in front of me. But I believe, Taylor, you have been looking up what you can do with SeatGeek.
I do enjoy that you still mimed having the app in front of you and using your phone accordingly. And I think you even swiped the number of times it would have taken you to get from your home screen.
Muscle memory.
There we go.
Muscle memory.
I do. I've got a few different things.
Yeah. We should also say SeatGeek is the easiest way to buy tickets to all kinds of live events.
Come on.
Music,
there we go.
sports, comedy, theatre.
Ooh.
Dance is one, I
sure.
guess.
I think, you get some ballet in there.
Any high-profile event, you can get tickets via SeatGeek, and SeatGeek will show you what's the best value, because it's an aggregator. They'll show you what is the best value with their green, orange, and red system. And then just 2 taps on your phone, you can buy and sell tickets.
All right. So if you're in the Richmond area and, you don't want to...
That's where we live.
Yeah, and you don't want to spend too much money, they've got you covered.
That's what I want to do.
When it comes to VCU's basketball season.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say kicking off. Tipping off would be more appropriate. November 6th against the Gardner-Webb Runnin' Bulldogs. That's their first game. That's at the Stew. Tickets are available right now.
Would you explain to non-Richmond people what is the Stew?
The Siegel Center or the Stewart Siegel Center?
Is that
what it is? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It took me a while to remember why it was called the Stew.
I didn't mean to be quizzing you. I just assumed that you knew.
Yeah. No, but it always throws me for a second because it's the Siegel Center. And I was like, that's not, SC isn't Stew. What are you guys doing? Yes, the Stewart Siegel Center.
They should totally serve up a stew, like a hot broth for the
one
for
of your
games.
worst ideas.
Why?
For a live sporting event indoors, you want everyone to be eating some stew?
The stew.
All right, calm it down, Carl Weathers. If money is not as much of an object and you live in Boston or New York, the American League Division Series is happening right now, the ALDS.
Is that basketball?
No, it's baseball.
Oh.
Yankees versus Red Sox in the AL championship, basically, before you go to the World
NFL
Series.
Teams, right?
Yes, exactly. You got it, Daryl. The game is happening right now, I believe, so there were tickets available, but if you wanted to wait till, say, October 9th, you could see Boston at New York, or if you wanted to wait till October 11th, you could see New York at Boston. Those tickets available, but you're going to have to shell out some dough.
Whoa, those baseballers play each other a lot.
They sure do. Best of 7 series will do that.
So if you wanted to get $20 off,
which would definitely be useful for the Boston at New York game,
right?
Yeah.
So to get $20 off any ticket price, even the Boston at New York game, it's NASCAR, right?
Yeah, you got it.
What you do is you download the SeatGeek app, go to the settings tab, enter the promo code TSS, you get $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase.
Mm-hmm. Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's episode. SeatGeek, Lifestead event, we've got the tickets. Daryl Grove, I really want you to attempt to really put in like a good faith effort to name every baseball team there is, like every MLB team. But I also want you to just have a go at the nicknames of them.
All right, so it's the Indy.
No, not here.
Indy 500.
Not here. I just want you to write it down and see where we get, because I feel like you can come up with some pretty great names.
I'll do this with you tomorrow. If we've got a spare 10 minutes, I will absolutely try this.
It's adorable to me that you think it would take you 10 minutes. All right, next game. Where would you like to go? Should we stay in England?
Yeah, let's go down by the Thames.
Let's do it. To talk about it, we're going to focus on one team more so than the other, but it's a team we haven't really talked about much since the beginning of the season. It's Arsenal. They were at Fulham at Craven Cottage.
They certainly were.
They handily defeated Fulham 5-1.
They were at Fulham and all over Fulham.
That is correct.
I think
Fulham kind of all over themselves too. They didn't really help themselves very much.
I really feel like I want to praise Arsenal here for how they handled this game. Mm-hmm. I want to praise Unai Emery for having a good approach to an away game. Mm-hmm. But this is mostly Fulham criticism, I think.
Okay. Let's start there then.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, so what's his name? Slavis Jokanovic, the Fulham coach.
Sure.
I think is approaching the Premier League with an almost obscene level of naivety.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He has got Fulham lined up in the 3-4-3 that did really well in the Championship last year, right? Mm-hmm. Even as a Wolves fan, there were long stretches where Fulham were the best team in the Championship, right? They were taking on everybody, beating all comers. He has gone into the Premier League, upgraded like a few players, right? Like Sarri in midfield, for example. But it's still just far too open. I look at this 3-4-3 and like when the wing backs get forward, for example, it literally is a 3-2-5.
Yep.
And you've got Sarri and I think Anguissa, the two central midfielders, then have the entire midfield.
You talking about John Michael Sarri?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Am I saying it incorrectly?
Yeah, sorry. It really threw me for a second. I was like, Mauricio Sarri does not play for Fulham.
Sarri, okay. So Sarri
yes.
and Anguissa were literally the only midfielders and everybody else is ahead of them. And then Arsenal could just easily break on them multiple times. It's like they don't know they're playing this like really high-end Premier League team.
Well, or don't care is maybe the other possible explanation, because it's not just that like the wingbacks got forward at inopportune moments. It was that they got forward and then stayed forward. There wasn't much of an effort.
Front five. It was like an old-fashioned like Jonathan Wilson type formation.
Yeah, you know but even as like Arsenal would break, you would see them sort of be like, oh, okay, fine, I'll track that guy. And it was like a reluctant jog back as that guy, usually Hector Bayern, would get like 40 yards ahead of them with just a direct run.
The pyramid had not yet been inverted.
It had not.
Craven cut.
Yikes.
I would submit the first goal as a really good example of this. So I think it's Lacazette scores the first goal, right? Yep. There's a lot of Fulham players pushed forward. Arsenal have the ball. I think it's Monreal at left back. Weirdly plays a right-footed long ball. Tim Ream wins the header, right? Tim Ream does his job. By the way, Tim Ream was playing. Yep. Fulham fans shouting Ream every time he made a defensive play. It was really enjoyable. Wins the header. As the ball drops down, I can't remember which midfielder is there, but there's almost no one around. Mkhitaryan's able to just coast in and pick up a loose ball over the halfway line in midfield and then send this move down the left, and eventually Monreal then overlaps, gets the cross in for Lacazette. So the idea of having that much space after your own... the opposition having that much space after the defensive teams won a header is just madness. Yeah. I'm mostly shocked at Fulham allowing this to happen.
And again, it was Christie, the right wing back, just not tracking back at all that led to that like massive amount of space being open. Yeah. And I would say this is another good example of two things can be two things, which is Fulham could have been very bad and very tactically naive, and then Arsenal were very good and very ruthless in exploiting those vulnerabilities.
So would you agree with me that Arsenal basically played a 4-4-2?
I think
like
so.
A tight-ish 4-4-2. It was quite compact and narrow when they didn't have the ball. So 4-4-2 with Lacazette and
the front
and
two,
Welbeck up front. Yeah, Xhaka and Torreira centre midfield, and out wide Mkhitaryan on the right and Alex Iwobi on the left, right? And then as soon as Arsenal had the ball, they were able to break forward all over Fulham in this way. So they were just tight defensively and really effective when in attack. There was never a contest here.
And which is shocking because, I would agree with you that it was essentially a 4-4-2 for Arsenal. And when you think of a 3-5-2 or 3-4-2-1 or whatever, like just numerically, that should be overwhelming for Fulham through the middle. They should be able to overwhelm two midfielders, one of whom is Granit Xhaka. And instead they absolutely could not. And I do think Xhaka was fine. I do think that Torreira, for me, was another key part of this, that he just mops up, man. Like, maybe he's not going to be the most physically intimidating player, but so many just little like poke tackles or collecting a ball after a tackle had occurred. He just consistently is in the right place. And I'm really happy to see him starting.
Do you remember our whole thing about him getting in the way?
Absolutely. And he did that time and time again. But I feel like we've gone this long, we probably have to talk about the third goal.
Is this the Aaron Ramsey goal?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So Ramsey off the bench scores easily the goal of the game.
Yes, 100%.
All right. You look excited about it.
I'm very excited about it because it's Bayern Bellerin. Again, we have that, the difference, whatever you want to go with. He gets the ball. It's a Fulham, not quite counterattack, but basically they play it long. Bellerin collects the ball. From there, it's Bellerin, Ramsey, Lacazette, Bellerin, Ramsey, Mkhitaryan, Aubameyang, Ramsey. That's about how that goes. That's the sequence. It is 14 touches between all those players total. 100-plus yards covered, 19 seconds. That's difficult in and of itself, kind of. But just the little like flicks and tricks and skills, but movement off the ball. And the fact that there was just one sequence where it was like a flick, then a one-touch flick, then another flick, then two headed like balls, then a no-look pass from Mkhitaryan into the channel. Like just all of this sequence was so pretty from start to finish, even if there were moments where it looked like, ooh, there's no way that's coming off. And then somehow Arsenal kept possession.
I've got an interesting idea.
What you got?
I think this goal is the Unai Emery equivalent of the famous, I think it's a Jack Wilshere goal, scored against Norwich under Arsene Wenger.
Yeah, with the Olivier Giroud flick.
Yeah. To me, that Wilshere goal was like the height of Wenger. But it was the entire Arsenal team camped out up on the edge of Norwich's box and they had to work it through tight spaces. And it was beautiful when it came off. But how many times did we see Arsenal try to work it through tight spaces and then get counter-attack time? This was Unai Emery sort of epitome goal because it's that same like fancy flicks and tricks, lots of people getting touches in quick succession, but look how much ground was covered
Oh,
in between. So I think this is almost the definitive Emery goal versus the definitive Wenger goal.
Yeah. And and with that in mind, I just still really appreciate that it's not one player feeling the need to get the ball and drive up the field with it and then look across. Just how, like, I think when Ramsey first gets the ball, or the second time he gets the ball, he does that little it's the second time. He does like the chip lift sort of over a tackle.
I love that move.
But then he leads it, and he knows that Lacazette is there and that Lacazette is probably going to play it back to him. And I think in other situations it would be easy for a player to do that, but then want to keep possession and call off Lacazette, and now it's just Ramsey dribbling down the field. Because he doesn't do that, it's more flicks and it's more combinations, and it felt like a team belief that maybe we haven't seen from Arsenal in years past.
Absolutely. Anything else to say on this game? I don't think we should break down every single goal.
No.
I think we've hit all the tactical elements. I would maybe hit a note of caution that even though we're super impressed with Arsenal, I'm more unimpressed with Fulham's naivety than I am with Arsenal's solidity.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do want to say one more thing about Arsenal, which is that I thought it was very interesting that Lacazette, who had a rough go certainly last season, when he scores that first goal. Did you see what he did?
No.
It's like a 40-yard sprint straight to jump into the arms of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who started on the bench, as we said.
I love a bromance.
Yeah, but then Aubameyang, who doesn't start, and like that could just so easily in another situation if Arsenal struggled, then it's, Aubameyang doesn't start. Is this a feud? Why can't he play? Is he not that good? And instead he comes in and scores 2 goals and has an assist. Like, he's doing just fine, and it feels like there's a lot of good attacking chemistry there. Mkhitaryan looks like a player reborn again in that play that led to the Ramsey goal. I cannot stress how impressive that pass is. That he gets the pass from the Ramsey doubleheader. Mkhitaryan is facing away from Fulham's goal and basically like lets the ball roll across him and turns and plays it with his left foot down the line and just knows Aubameyang is there and open, which I'm assuming is because he was being screamed at by Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. But either way, just the fluidity of that move, it was a sight to watch.
Oh, okay. My final word on Fulham?
Yeah.
They are going to be the prettiest team to ever be relegated.
Let's hope not. I have a feeling if this continues, we maybe see a managerial change and we see a different approach to these games.
You might see a panic, right, where they have to get rid of him. And
who could they possibly go after? The answer is Big Sam.
He would not be playing a wide-open 3-4-3.
He would not. And it feels like they're going to need a relegation specialist. And it feels like it's going to be Big Sam. I'm just going to throw that one in there again.
I don't want that to happen. I want Jokanovic to figure this out.
Sure. Yeah. I'm sure he does too.
Honestly, take the 3-4-3 and just tell people to come back a little bit. You can quickly form a 5-4-1. Hold them off a little bit.
I don't disagree.
Call me.
But I would say that's not
that's
not an obvious approach to things, and that he didn't already do that would be worrying to me were I a Fulham fan.
Yes, exactly. All right. Either way, well done to Arsenal.
Yeah.
Big win, 5-1.
Indeed.
But even more well done.
Yeah.
To Borussia Mönchengladbach, who went to the Allianz Arena in the Bundesliga and beat Bayern Munich 3-0. Here's why we've chosen this as the game to watch. A lot of people suggested maybe we should talk about Dortmund's 4-3 win. Late winner for that free kick from Paco Alcácer.
96th minute, I believe.
Paco Alcácer, 96th minute. Puts Dortmund top of the league, right?
Yep.
But the reason Dortmund are top of the Bundesliga is because Bayern are not where they normally are.
They're not in the Champions League places heading into the international break.
Exactly.
They're 6th in the table.
So weirdly, Bayern, I think, is the more interesting team to talk about.
Especially because we've talked about Dortment a lot.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. Except to say Jadon Sancho for the win.
True. And I think I saw 2 different people, one of whom was either Michael Cox or Rafa Honigstein, saying they're the most exciting team in Europe right now.
Dortmund.
Which I feel like I think it was Michael Cox, because Rafa Honigstein has the Germany bias. For Michael Cox to say that, I felt like was a very positive sign for Dortmund fans.
I mean, you could just add up the numbers in the games.
Well, there's that too, yeah.
All right, so Bayern hosted Borussia Mönchengladbach. No Fabian Johnson for Gladbach, but Gladbach won 3-0.
Yep.
All right, Taylor, we haven't talked about this, right? Not much anyway. We watched it separately. How did this happen? How did Bayern lose 3-0 at home to Gladbach?
Okay, first of all, it was the sort of definitive things are not right. Something is rotten in Denmark sort of game, except in the Allianz Arena. That I think Bayern had like 70% of possession, thereabouts, but really struggled to get good shooting opportunities, really struggled to find Robert Lewandowski. And Borussia Mönchengladbach, for their part, they just took their chances. I think there was only one, aside from the 3 goals, there was only one other counterattack that I think they shot just wide. And even then, that was still going to be tough in like a 2v2 situation.
Yep.
But it was just Gladbach being ruthless, but sort of also Bayern making mistakes that we haven't seen in seasons past, but it does sound like is a thing that's happening more and more this season.
Yes. Do you want to talk about that, or do you want to get into the goals?
I mean, we can talk about that in relation to the second goal, because I think that's the one that I really would point to as something is wrong with this team. Okay. Because the second goal is the one, it's Manuel Neuer, plays a short goal kick to Thiago.
Yep.
Thiago, I watched this a bunch. I think he gets a slight touch to it, but he basically does the same thing. He lets the ball roll across him because he's prepared to drive forward. And I think I don't know if it's just complacency or a lack of awareness, but it felt to me for a moment like, oh, we're Bayern Munich. No one's going to pressure me.
Yep.
And so he just lets it roll and gets it taken off of him, and Gladbach score.
Hoffman was there.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. Hoffman gives it to, I believe, Stindl. Mm-hmm. Stindl scores. That's what I think happened with this pass at the back. I think Bayern very relaxed. They know they're 1-0 down. Mm-hmm. They're thinking, Gladbach won't possibly come and challenge us on the edge of our own area. Manuel Neuer is in kind of a hurry to get the ball back in play from this goal kick. Thiago is asking for it. He's literally asking for the ball. I see him gesture to his feet. Neuer plays it to him like he asks. No one tells Thiago man on as Hoffman charges. Doesn't look around. Thiago, I think the commentator said he has a bad touch. He doesn't. He just lets the ball run across him and turns because he thinks he can wander upfield with the ball. And he had another thing coming.
And just to clarify, I don't disagree with anything you said.
Yeah.
But like, it's a strange thing to say that like I think he does get a touch to the ball, but it's not a bad touch. You're correct.
No,
because
it's a turning touch.
Because it's what he meant to do.
Yep.
It's just a bad decision. And it's a weird thing where he does what he meant to do. It's just the wrong thing to be doing.
Yep.
I don't know why I feel the need to clarify that, other than if you hear that and think like, well, he took a touch and he played it into a player. Like, how is that not a bad touch? And if it's what you're trying to do, then it's by definition not a bad thing.
Here's an interesting thing.
Intentionally bad.
So
rather.
Both of these, the first 2 goals were inside the first 16 minutes or so. I actually think the first goal has a lot of similarities in a weird way. It's more elaborate, but just as Thiago was thinking about the attack, right, and ready to go and not ready to be tackled, for the first goal, which is where Bayern were really taken by surprise, because they'd had the ball for the first, I want to say it's like the first 10 minutes or so. Bayern have the ball, they're attacking, they can't break Gladbach down. There's a clearance from, I believe it's Neuhaus, clears it. Süle, Bayern Munich centre-back, collects it. But rather than thinking safety first, play it back to the keeper, whatever, he tries to receive the ball and he tries to like almost turn and play it back forward into the attack faster than he's really capable of. Gets tackled by Stindl. That's when Mönchengladbach have the ball. And then there's a few passes, and then it ends with, I've forgotten his name, is it Alassane Play?
Your pronunciation is better than mine, so
hits
sure.
that wonderful strike. It's spelled Plea and he's French. So I'm going to say player? Maybe player. Let's call him player.
Player?
Yeah, player.
Something like that, yeah.
I think you've got it.
There we go.
But the possession turnover all comes from Süle just being, not even thinking what the smart thing to do is, just thinking about how to get it back into the attack as fast as possible.
Yeah, but it's also the case that it's Gladbach then, as I said before, like ruthlessly efficient in backing themselves to take that chance. And I think you contrast that with Bayern, certainly in the first half, a little bit in the second half. Just you don't have that efficiency that we're used to from them. There's one, I think right before the second goal, Thomas Müller has a shooting chance from outside the 18 that he just blasts over.
Yes.
And I think in other seasons and other games, he takes a touch and finds somebody, and then they find somebody, and then maybe it comes back to Thomas Müller for a Müller hello, or it feels like more composed. And in this game, it felt much more like Bayern under pressure and sort of not really knowing how to come back from it.
I think Gladbach came with a defensive plan that Bayern didn't have an answer for. And then when they got those 2 early-ish goals, then Gladbach could just stick with the plan, and Bayern still didn't have an answer for any of it. I'd love to talk about Gladbach's defending if you're
please,
interested.
go ahead.
I have a theory. I have a thesis paper that I prepared.
Assumed you would want to talk about Gladbach's defending, given, who you are.
So, given who I am. So it was listed as a 4-3-3. But it was not a 4-3-3.
Oh, boy.
It was really basically a...
Oh, boy. We're going twas?
Just for fun.
That's troubling.
It was essentially a 4-5-1, right? They sat really deep in the 4-5-1. The right-back Lang was basically flanked by Thorgan Hazard, who almost played as an extra right-back.
Yep.
He was all the way back. On the other side, Wendt is flanked by Plea. as well.
I have nothing of substance to add other than I just wanted to note at that point. It is still, I know Torgan Hazard plays for Gladbach. It still throws me off every time because if you see him when he's like, if you see the back of his head as he's walking away and you see Hazard, you're like, wait, when did that happen? Because they do look really similar, at least when they're walking away from the camera. Yeah.
But it's even weirder to see a Hazard playing on the wing.
Well, yeah.
Knowing he has attacking skills, because Thorgan Hazard does have attacking skills, he absolutely dedicated himself to being essentially an extra right back. And what it meant is every time, I think James Rodriguez was the left-sided attacker in the first half, David Alaba overlapping him. They never managed to get 2-on-1 or any numerical advantage or any room to cross because they were always outnumbered by Mönchengladbach defenders. And then Mönchengladbach, if they ever did get a cross in, Mönchengladbach they always seem to have like 100 players in the box ready to head things away.
I agree with you. The one thing I would add though is like to my earlier point about Thomas Muller rushing a shot. The one time maybe Bayern do have like an aerial chance, it's James Rodriguez going for a bike when there are two players around him who are waiting to hit that cross on the volley. Yeah. And again, it just feels like this. It's not about the team. Contrast it with Arsenal, where it's I've chipped that, but I don't need to continue the run. Now Lacazette has that ball. I feel like with Bayern, it's James Rodriguez trying to take that shot or take that touch, and it's not just James. Don't get me wrong. But the one chance they did have, right? He goes no one was good. He goes for this very acrobatic but very unlikely bicycle when he's got two players there waiting to shoot.
So you're saying there's no team connection, there's just individuals trying to make things happen?
I think so, because I think they're not used to this situation. They're not used to being put under pressure like this. It's been a while since they really were struggling like this, and
I agree.
I'm curious to see what they're going to do because it doesn't feel like they can just get in a new manager. There's lots of jokes about, I think I sent you one, the meme that's doing the rounds is like Jupp Heynckes' wife like cutting the phone line so they can't call to ask if he can come back. Nor do I think they would, though.
Is the joke that she doesn't know about mobile phones?
Good point.
It's still a good joke.
Maybe Heynckes doesn't know about mobile phones. He's like 73 or something like that. Yeah. That was ageist. My bad. I hope my father-in-law is not listening.
Yeah.
But I think it's also the case that Karl-Heinz Rummenigge and Uli Hoeneß, they chose Kovac. I think they had a little bit of a disagreement about Kovac or Thomas Tuchel. Yeah. They ended with Kovac.
Oh, yeah. We should back up a second, just if anyone who's not familiar, because we haven't followed the Bundesliga as closely as we should have. Niko Kovac took over this summer, right? So he's the new coach, and it's all going very badly.
It is. But I think because he was the one they chose, a lot of people expecting them to go for Julian Nagelsmann. They did not. The speculation is because he wanted too much control. They didn't like some of what he said in the interviews or in the potential interviews or whatever. So they went with Kovac, but that's part of the problem is that it feels like the board isn't really being challenged that much or pushed the way it was under Ancelotti, the way it was under Guardiola. And so now that's sort of not reinforcing. And I think the thing that really was telling to me is that you had Renato Sanchez as the player being brought on to try to change things late in the game. That's not what you would have seen in the past. Yes, there are injuries that are definitely causing problems. That's going to be exacerbated because I think David Alaba maybe pulled his hamstring or at least strained it in this game. But it still feels like they haven't reinforced, and they're not quite that Bayern Munich swaggering giant that we've seen in seasons recently.
So is it possible that the end of the Bayern dominance, because it has been the last decade or so, it's been absolute dominance of the Bundesliga, right? Yeah. With a brief challenge from Dortmund, but no more, is going to be ended by the arrogance of Uli Hoeneß and Karl-Heinz Rummenigge refusing to have a young manager like Julian Nagelsmann come in and take over. Yeah. They're going to want to be sort of in control of what's happening. And they might even, for a whole season, because didn't Hoeneß say we're with him till the bitter end about Niko Kovac? They might stick with an unsuccessful coach just because he's their choice and they see their control being more important than what happens on the field.
I still don't know if I'm ready to say that like Kovac is getting stuff wrong, though. It feels like he's having trouble resonating is the best way I can put that. Like, I think it was James Rodriguez made a comment, I don't know if it was after this game or before, about like, this isn't Frankfurt, like we've got to figure it out. That's where Niko Kovac was. That's a very pointed shot at his new manager. Yeah.
You're a bad man, James.
So there's little things like that make me think that maybe they're not, some players aren't quite loving life under Kovac.
I hope James isn't that ruthless when the US plays Colombia.
Yeah, let's hope. But I also think there's other things like Boateng and Hummels, two players that like whenever we do a draft, one of them is one of our first picks for center back, and then the other one of us takes the other one. Like we always go that route. And the weird silver lining I have from this game is that I do think that if you're a Man United fan, things could be worse, because if Jose Mourinho had gotten Jerome Boateng seems to have been in a pretty precipitous decline.
Yeah.
Did not start this game.
Yeah, it was
because it was Sula and Hummels, I believe, because his form hasn't been very good. So
he gave away that penalty in midweek, right, against Ajax. Horrible penalty.
So Boateng, Jose could have gotten Boateng, and then Boateng could be doing what he's doing now, and that could have been bad. But it feels like they brought in Sula last season. Sula hasn't necessarily impressed to the point where he's the obvious starter, and so it seems
I blame him for the first goal.
Yeah, that's a spot where they're sort of struggling. I mean, Manuel Neuer gone for most of last season. I think when they lost to Augsburg or drew Augsburg, I forget, he just gave the ball to Augsburg for a goal. There's just these moments from players that you expect to be good.
He had one against Mönchengladbach that went unpunished, but was just a shank. Just like, it looked like a guy who couldn't kick a ball. Yeah.
And so it's just, it's not that you expect to be good, it's that you expect to be reliable. That you think of Manuel Neuer, Jerome Boateng, Mats Hummels, how are you going to score on that? And it just feels like it's getting exposed a little bit more, and then you run into the other problems. Like I said, David Alaba, he is starting left back, he gets injured, so then they slide Joshua Kimmich across, but now you don't have his sort of attack down the right, play the ball in with the right foot, because he's attacking down the left, and it kind of negates some of your options because you don't have depth in other positions.
Final thing I want to talk about is the third goal.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that, have we?
It was 2-0 for the longest time.
Yep.
Then Patrick Herrmann scores in the 88th minute. I don't think we need to detail and break down and diagram this play, except that to say that if you want to see Bayern in trouble, go watch this goal.
You're right.
It's an absolute disaster of a goal.
It is, and you're right.
I use that term not lightly.
You're right to say that this. It's crazy that we haven't talked about this yet, because this was the one
it's
where
the
I was
worst
like,
one, right?
what is happening? Yeah,
it's the we give up one.
Yeah, it's Goretzka taking a bad position, trying to cut out a pass in the air, completely missing, and then it's just no pressure. There's just no pressure there, and I know it's theoretically because they think there's a handball, but how many times have we talked about don't stop play to raise your hand and complain to the referee as play is happening?
All that to me is not even the worst thing. The worst thing is that it's Borussia Mönchengladbach corner kick, and they only have maybe, because they're 2-0 up and it's the 88th minute, they only have 2 or 3 people up there, and yet they still manage to cross the ball. I think it's Christoph Kramer can just receive the ball and lift it onto the far post for Herrmann, and there's never a challenge. There's 7 Bayern players, 3 Mönchengladbach, and they're able to play through them as if they were training cones.
I don't know who...
All that is wrong.
I'll say this. I don't know who had an easier goal. Carly Lloyd, when she dribbled through the whole Panama defense and then found herself just one-on-one with
that step over.
With a very frustrated Panamanian goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Or in this situation, Manuel Neuer, he's just standing there in the goal this is not going to go well for me, and it doesn't.
All right, so something is rotten in the state of Allianz.
yes. So we'll see. Again, the interesting thing is, same thing for Fulham. They have the international break now. So I'm very curious to see what Bayern do over the break. If they do double down on Kovac, or if maybe he runs different sessions, maybe some of their players suddenly develop injuries and they can't go on international duty. We shall see.
All right, we have lots more to talk about. But first, today's show is sponsored by Blue Apron.
It is.
Blue Apron delivers farm-fresh ingredients and step-by-step recipes to your door. Instructions so simple, Niko Kovac couldn't screw it up.
Oh, harsh on him. Harsh on Niko Kovac. What's
Jokanovic couldn't screw it up?
Yeah, that's the one I was looking for. Thank you.
Even if he interpreted the recipes very liberally with no backstop, he would still produce a very nice meal.
I do like the idea of
he would spread his ingredients really wide across the kitchen. He'd still get to them.
I just I was going to say, I like the idea of like salt and olive oil being included. Him just be like, nah, you guys stay over there, throwing them to the other side of the kitchen. I don't need you. We'll figure it out. You shouldn't do that, but you should use the ingredients that Blue Apron.
Salt around.
No, they deliver you fresh, seasonally inspired ingredients. I find that amazing because given Richmond in October is now occasionally still 95 degrees outside, I'm hoping that's like pumpkin with hot sauce or something. That's seasonal for right now.
Global warming could be a whole culinary adventure in Richmond.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah.
Or disaster, whatever.
Plus 150 million deaths.
Yeah, it's fine. Whatever.
I read that report.
Blue Apron's loving this. Yeah, let's get back to the Blue Apron, shall we?
Blue Apron, get it while you can.
Yeah, dinner in as little as 20 minutes. That's good, since time is of the essence. Every week, at least 3 recipes built with your busy schedule in mind, where Blue Apron has done the meal prep for you. Prepared sauces, spices, and ingredients. It's all in that box.
So if you would like to check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals for free, go to blueapron.com/APRON. blueapron.com/TSS. That's blueapron.com/TSS to get your first 3 meals for free.
That's right. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. And thank you to Blue Apron for sponsoring today's episode. Daryl Grove, you said we've got more to get to. Where should we head next?
First, I want to assure people that the global warming apocalypse is not coming. It won't ruin your Blue Apron experience. Next, let's go to... we've done a lot of Premier League, but I think really the most talked about game of the weekend was at Old Trafford.
Right, that one.
It was where Manchester United were 2-0 down within 10 minutes. And then were 3-2 winners by the end of the game. I'm going to say Jose Mourinho was fired at half-time. And he was not fired by full-time.
I think the commentary team would definitely agree with you.
Yeah, although White and Graham were convinced that Mourinho was... They weren't wrong at the time, to be fair. And there was also...
Well, we don't know that. I guess I'm not trying to jump in here and say, oh, no, he had it the whole time. And I knew the entire time. But it did feel like their commentary was informed by things seemed to have gone very wrong. And so even when Mourinho was making changes, it felt like it was still a desperate man with his last desperate choice. It's just all right, guys.
I mean, but that's actually is kind of what happened, and yet it worked out. The desperate man and his desperate choice really, really worked out.
True.
All right, before we dig into the game, it's worth just pointing out that there was that story by, I can't remember who it was. It was a respected journalist who was right about the Van Gaal sacking.
David something,
who said that...
Who is now banned.
Really? From Old Trafford. That he said that no matter the result this weekend, Mourinho will be fired after the weekend.
Right.
It is now, we're recording this, late Monday night. There seems no sign of a Jose Mourinho firing. I think it's very unlikely after a comeback 3-2 win where Manchester United attacked.
Okay. I'm not sure I agree with you, but I'm also not sure I would. I'm not sure I think Mourinho is going to be fired, but I wouldn't agree that this is going to have that much of a lasting ramification on what Jose Mourinho wants to do this season.
Okay. All right. So this gets into the idea that they really did attack the second half. Right? After 20 minutes, even, after the 2-0 down, after 20 minutes, Mourinho takes off Eric Bailly. And we've looked at this a few times to make sure it wasn't really an Eric Bailly punishment, right? When he comes off, Mourinho hugs him. It's somewhat conciliatory. I am really confident that it's just sacrificing a centre-back to get on an extra attacking midfielder. Juan Mata replaces him to try and turn this game around.
Yeah, right? I mean, I think if you're going to sacrifice a center back, though, Eric Bailly, I would say, demonstrably was the worst of the two.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at the first 2 goals. I would say he plays a part in both of them. Specifically, the first one where he's just kind of caught in no man's land.
He plays a part by playing zero part in the defending. Yeah.
So I think if you're going to take a center back off, it's going to be him. And then, but to your point, you see Mourinho hug him. It's a very prolonged, you can tell he's saying, it's not about you. We got to change the formation. We got to change what we're doing.
It wasn't a punishment.
No.
It was more just a sacrifice.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Okay. And then so second half, he kind of doubles down, right? We end up with Nemanja Matic as one of the centre-backs.
Because when Bailly comes off, McTominay, who had been a centre midfielder, drops to a centre-back. At halftime, McTominay comes off, and Matic drops to a centre-back.
Yeah, so a lot of chopping and changing, but I think it kind of worked, right? So you end up with Matic and Smalling as the centre-backs. And here's the interesting thing to me. Paul Pogba sitting just in front of them. And weirdly, even though that sounds more defensive to pull Pogba farther back, because now Matic isn't there to be the main defensive midfielder, I think that's kind of the key to the game.
I would agree.
Because I think the correct use of Paul Pogba is to have him start deep.
I would agree.
To have him start counter-attacks and then offer sort of sneaking up there, joining the attack late to make things happen. I think this is where Paul Pogba is going to really fit in for Manchester United.
I mean, again, if they continue down this path.
Yeah.
That's the thing I keep going back to is you and I have both played in and seen games where it was they figured it out. To your earlier point about Fulham were not very good at the beginning of last season. They changed their formation and suddenly they keep winning games they can't stop winning. And you can have those changes mid-season. I still don't know if this is one of those or if this was just Newcastle were up 2-0. They got very defensive. Manchester United basically could throw everything at them and didn't really have to worry about being defensive.
There's a lot of crosses, a lot of sort of 1-2s at the top of the box. It was really thrilling to watch. It was to me, it was like a Manchester United throwback.
Yeah.
And it reminded me why I really enjoyed those Man United teams that would go a goal or two down and then really chase after it.
Yeah, and while we're contrasting it with games we've already talked about, look at Bayern. You would have expected that sort of onslaught from them of, okay, we got to get something going, and you didn't really see that. So that you did from United is certainly reassuring if you're a United fan or enjoy interesting soccer. But I still, I can't see Nemanja Matic starting as a center-back. That's still where my head is.
Okay.
But I could see maybe it is Matic and Pogba as your two, and that is the approach they go with for the rest of the season.
Okay. What else could you see being kept from this game. So, for example, Anthony Martial has not been popular with Jose Mourinho.
I was going to say, who's the with there?
That's not a secret, right? And yet he scores, I believe it's the equaliser. It's an absolutely incredible goal, right? It's that clever flick back from Pogba to Martial, the French connection, and Martial in the bottom left corner. Like, that has to win him a starting spot back in the team after the international break, assuming Jose Mourinho is still around.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's definitely justified continued selection, but we'll see.
Alexis Sanchez back in favour. Surely scores the winner.
I would say the one change that I would say maybe does last is we don't see as much Scott McTominay as we've been seeing, because this is the second time they've tried him as a centre back. It's the second time it hasn't worked, or at least it didn't work this time because Matic ends up going back there. So I think maybe that's when we don't see him as much, and we see other faces get some opportunities in the middle. I don't know if Marcus Rashford necessarily helped his case, so maybe he's one that we don't see as much, and instead maybe it is Sanchez and Martial, or maybe Juan Mata. Maybe we could see that too. But again, it's a lot of maybes. I think the one that, in my mind, is definitely likely is to see Paul Pogba deeper, picking up the ball from the center backs, charging forward with it, but then also being the one to kind of cover when United press those numbers forward.
All right. What I would like to see is Jose Mourinho have a kind of come to Jesus moment, and to decide, okay, the way I save my spell at Man United is to really take the brakes off and just tell the players to go for it, and don't give them complicated defensive instructions. Just tell them to get forward and attack and express themselves. I'm not saying it's likely.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But I'm saying there's like a 10% possibility that this weekend's game makes him, like, flips a switch in his head and he's like, all right, this is how I'm going to do it.
Here's my question. I mean this genuinely. Yeah. Have we literally ever seen Jose Mourinho do that? Have we ever seen a Jose Mourinho team that was attack? And I'm really not asking that with like, have we ever seen that though?
No, I don't think we have.
So yeah, so that's where I still feel like I don't know what lessons are learned from this in total, or what changes the season or what have you, because it's still Mourinho. And I also think, with that in mind, it's still Mourinho who wants to be the end-all be-all. He is the decider. He is the right one. And for him to say, like, yeah, I got it wrong, we're going to go all-out attack, that just feels like a little bit too much humility from him.
How about, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm sort of playing angel's advocate. If
who's the angel here?
A good Mourinho is the angel. All right. Devil's advocate would be to keep playing defensively. Okay. If Pep Guardiola can learn to keep his fullbacks back in the Premier League, maybe Jose Mourinho can learn to send all his players forward.
Yeah, slightly different vibes within the two teams, I think, when that happened. I mean, it's possible. Yeah, I think, even though we're saying it's never happened before.
Wouldn't it be a lovely redemptive story if that is what happens this season, and Man United end up playing like a Ferguson team for the first time since the end of the Ferguson era, because Mourinho embraces the attack?
See, what I think, with that in mind, Man United keep talking about how they want a technical director and they want someone to come in and handle transfers or whatever. I feel like what they need is a very good psychologist to figure out how to approach that stuff with Mourinho. Because I feel like if the board said to him, hey, that second half was really good, we want more like that, can you make that happen?
Yeah.
His response is going to be like, you can't tell me what to do. I'm Mourinho. I will manage however I choose to manage. But if you have the psychologist inform them, like,
he'll make a plan to go 2-0 down in the first 10 minutes of every game.
Well, it's more like, I want the psychologist to be like, here's how you have to say that to him so he thinks it's his idea. And then then you learn how to adjust and address him.
Need a Jose whisperer.
Yeah, exactly.
Final Mourinho question. Per Carl Anka.
Yeah.
Did Mourinho cut his own hair before this game? Because
I
remember when Carl Anka was on here, he said that's when you know things are about to go really, really badly, is when Mourinho cuts his own hair. It was a new haircut.
It was. I looked at it very closely after you made that point. It's too well faded. The fade on the sides is too specific for it to have been him doing it. Not to say that he's not a good barber. He may well be. It does feel like he would focus on that type of stuff. But
the styling on top as well, right? You can see he's done something. Whereas the previous, like, all out, Jose's cut his own hair, everybody hide.
He took a trimmer to it.
Just a buzz cut, right?
And buzzed that thing. Yeah. Yeah. So, again, it's going to be really interesting to see how they come out of the international break. If we continue to see United a bit more attacking, maybe it is a 4-1-4-1 with Paul Pogba sitting the deepest, or Matic sitting the deepest and Paul Pogba just ahead.
Yep.
I don't know, but I think interested to watch. I'm still not so set on United having a great season. We'll find out.
All right, we've gone in depth on, turns out, about 5 games this week, which I think is, we've stretched ourselves.
That's decent. Yeah.
We've stretched ourselves. How about some quick bullet points?
Sure.
George Bello, 16-year-old left-back, not only started for Atlanta United, he scored this weekend.
He did.
Have you seen this goal?
I have.
Oh, lovely.
What did you like most about it?
I like that he probably should have passed it to the far post for Joseph Martinez, but he didn't. And Joseph Martinez wasn't even upset. Nah. Instead, Bello just banged it in the bottom left corner.
Yep. I mean, take your chances, young man.
Yeah.
And I feel like, he had the opportunity we talked about against DC United where he comes in late. Maybe this one was just a little bit more like, no, I'm getting mine when I can get mine.
Have you seen the post-match quote as well?
No.
I can't remember the journalist, so I apologise. But somebody asked him who his role models were. And he was like Marcelo, Roberto Carlos. I think he said David Alaba. It's like all the exciting attacking left backs.
All right.
And the weird thing was hearing that, you could really see it and think, okay, we could have a left back who's modelled his game on these guys.
How would you have felt if he had said Fabian Johnson? Would you have been like, uh-oh?
Less good?
Yeah.
Less good. Like, that means you don't really want to play left back. Right?
Yeah.
So there you go, George Bello with his goal in Major League Soccer.
Right.
One more bullet point for Major League Soccer. Matias Almeida. We got that news just before we came in the studio, right? He is the new San Jose coach, the Argentinian former defensive midfielder, most recently coached Chivas de Guadalajara to the CONCACAF Champions League. He turned that team around, won, I can't remember if it was Clausura or Apertura, won a couple of Mexican Cups and won the CONCACAF Champions League.
Yes.
He's now going to be the San Jose coach.
He is.
That's exciting for MLS.
It is. A friend of the show, Tom Marshall, pointed out that some of his teams at Chivas were erratic, is how I'm going to put that, and maybe inconsistent performances.
Yeah.
So we'll see what type of consistency San Jose have next season.
Also, I haven't looked into this, but I've also heard that he's a fan of playing the kids.
All right.
So it could be more minutes for Jackson Ewell and Tommy Thompson and all those homegrown players coming through at San Jose. Let me have my optimism.
Okay.
Let me have
By all
my
means, have it.
optimism. All right, more bullet points.
Tommy Thompson still a kid?
He's a young adult.
Okay, there we go.
Bobby Wood.
Yeah.
Bobby Wood scored 2 goals for Hanover in their 3-1 win. I've forgotten who they played, but they had a 3-1 win in the Bundesliga.
Stuttgart, I believe.
Over Stuttgart. Bobby Wood scored the first 2 goals for Hanover, both with his noggin.
Daryl points to his head. He did.
He actually tapped it a little too hard.
Both well taken. Probably the first one a little more impressive because we had a conversation about it. It's not a flick on, but it is a flicked header.
Yeah.
But it's basically, cross comes in, it's a directional header to the far post side netting. But that's, I'd say, more impressive than just a bullet header or just a powerful header, which is what Bobby Wood's second goal was.
Yep.
And I would say it's more impressive because it speaks to the awareness to, in the moment, with the ball in the air, with Bobby Wood in the air, he's able to evaluate, see where the goalkeeper is, figure out the best possible spot to put that ball, and then he puts it there for the goal. Just
in time for us to feel good about him being in the US national team as he comes over for the Colombia and Peru games.
I mean, first half brace, that's good, but also because, Weston McKennie out, Christian Pulisic out, Tyler Adams out. Yep. We need reasons for optimism. Bobby Wood scoring goals is one of those things.
Weston McKennie did score for Schalke, got his first Bundesliga goal, but then got injured.
No.
We'll say we got a DM from Neil Blackman, who said, make sure to take a look at Bobby Wood's movement. Okay. So I didn't watch the whole Hanover game.
I thought that was a joke when I first saw it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
He'd sent this after the goals, right? So maybe you didn't know about that. So I didn't watch the whole game, but I did watch his movement for example, for the first goal. He really does do that wonderful thing where he drifts between 2 centre-backs, right? Zach Galifianakis. But he makes sure he is between the 2 centre-backs so neither of them has him. So it's a really nice move from Bobby Wood. Also, I took a look at the assists. They're both from a gentleman named Miko Albonoz. So I think we have an Albonoz-Wood connection here. We have some service coming in from the left for Bobby Wood. This could be the root of some Bobby Wood goals.
Yeah, the skeptic in me responds, limited sample size, my friend.
Hey, 2 goals.
Yep. All right. We'll see if that keeps going.
Yeah.
I will withhold my enthusiasm. I've been hurt by Bobby Wood before.
Well, somebody who scored double the amount of goals.
Yeah.
And in just 13 minutes was Kylian Mbappe, who scored 4 goals.
Can we get him on the national team?
He's already spoken for. 4 goals in 13 minutes in PSG's 5-0 win over Lyon. Ooh, and there were some goals.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you have a favourite?
I think my favourite was, the one where Neymar played him a through ball. Because it was the most obvious example of Neymar serving one up to Kylian Mbappe.
Yeah.
And because here's my big takeaway from this is I saw a lot of photos and stuff from this game of Mbappe celebrating and someone had caught a moment where Neymar was looking at him with a bit of a scowl.
Yeah.
And the caption was you move away from Barcelona to get out of the shadow of Messi and then this teenager is overshadowing you. Then I saw the first goal. The first goal was Neymar dribbling through. His shot gets blocked and it pops to Mbappe who scores. But after that, it's Neymar setting up Mbappe and it's Mbappe and Neymar celebrating every goal together. There is no rivalry there. There's teammates who seem to really enjoy playing with each other. So if you really watch the way they celebrate, and I know you love this stuff, this is like genuinely the whole pointing at each other, hugging each other thing. They are in sync.
All right. I will take your word for it. I know what you meant. I'll take your word for it because I have seen plenty of those reports from like more reputable sources than just Neymar making a face, saying that Neymar doesn't necessarily love it when Kylian Mbappe has a good game. But maybe that's something to keep an eye on. Maybe they are developing into a lethal partnership that will be best friends.
So I didn't watch the whole game. I just saw the goals, but honestly, it really looked like two buddies enjoying scoring goals together. Yeah.
All right.
Even though one was scoring more than the other.
All right.
That's all my bullet points.
All right. Bullet points established, but that doesn't mean it's the end of the show because we've also got several scouting reports to get to.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Starting with Anurag Anjaria scouting Andrija Novakovic, the 22-year-old American forward on loan at Fortuna Sittard from Reading. Novakovic could not save Fortuna from a 2-0 defeat at home to second-place Ajax. On the bright side, his movement and link-up play was solid, and he was involved in most of his side's scoring chances. Novakovic was then named in the 24-man roster for the upcoming USWNT friendlies against Colombia and Peru.
All right, so thumbs down, but then thumbs up.
Yeah.
Alex Forbes is scouting Reggie Cannon, the 20-year-old American right-back for FC Dallas. Cannon was also called up to the national team, says Alex. After logging less than 2 minutes the previous season, this call-up is one of many milestones in a meteoric year that has seen Reggie play in a team-high 30 games, notch his first goal, and play a pivotal role in helping FC Dallas secure a spot back in the MLS playoffs.
Well done, Reginald. Chris Fujimoto scouting Jonathan Amon, 19-year-old American winger for FC Nordsjælland. Amon also earned his first senior USMNT call-up for the upcoming friendlies against Colombia and Peru. Saracen commented, with the combination of his speed and ability to go at defenders in the final third, he's someone that has shown to have a certain skill set that we have been missing. Go ahead. I was just going to say, I think that was the one that then was the second quote, like, and James Sands is also there? Or not James Sands. Who's the left back from NYCFC who made it?
Ben Sweat.
Ben Sweat. He was like, and Ben Sweat is also there. It was like one of those like juxtaposition quotes.
We did hear from some NYCFC
Definitely
fans.
Not James Sands. Yeah.
Heard from some NYCFC fans about Ben Sweat. They said he hasn't been good lately.
Yeah.
But nobody's been all that good since Vieira left. So if you want to look at like the best of Ben Sweat, you got to go back to the Vieira days to see him at his best.
Okay.
So I think it's worth just putting that out there because we weren't too complimentary to Ben Sweat when we talked about the original.
Does that make you more complimentary? Because I'm not sure that national team call-ups should be based on he was good a while ago.
Neither am I. But like as an overall judge of his ability,
okay.
Maybe it's better to look at him when all of NYCFC was playing well. Yeah,
US soccer.
Yeah. Todd Brannan is scouting Cameron Carter-Vickers, the 20-year-old American defender on loan at Swansea from Spurs.
Troubling report.
Swansea played 2 games this week. CCV was on the bench the entire time. He's been available for 9 games since a transfer. He's made 1 sub-appearance and 1 start, totaling 12 minutes. 112 minutes, that's better. Todd is starting to wonder how his loan is helping his development as he's currently being kept on the bench by another 20-year-old Welsh defender, Joe Rodon.
That is really troubling because he got way more minutes both at Ipswich and Sheffield last season. So that's a little bit disconcerting, to say the least.
Is there happier news with George Acosta?
We shall find out. Scott Gleich scouting George Acosta, 18-year-old American midfielder for Boca Juniors. Acosta has been playing regularly for the Boca's U19s as a number 10.
Okay.
It sounds like Boca fans are pretty pleased with his work, but all the evidence Scott has found so far is very secondhand.
I'll take secondhand good news.
All right.
Charles Spiekerman is scouting Georgi Mihailovic, the 19-year-old American midfielder for the Chicago Fire. After returning from last season's torn ACL, Georgie has been one of the lone bright spots on the tail end of a disappointing year for the Chicago Fire. Since returning, he's played in all 6 matches, started 5, got 2 assists in a 4-0 win over Orlando City, and then got a goal and an assist in the 3-1 win over LAFC.
That said, they did lose this weekend to DC United, which I only bring up to say, did you see the photo of Bastian Schweinsteiger and Wayne Rooney hugging?
No.
Because it was adorable.
Oh, they were teammates, of course.
They sure were. Wes Kaufman scouting Ayo Akinyola, the 18-year-old American forward for Toronto FC/TFC2.
For the German national team, obviously, is how they were teammates.
Yes. I was like, Ayo? What? Huh? Akinyola continues to make a case to be included in Tab Ramos' U20 team for the upcoming qualifying cycle by scoring for TFC2 this past weekend in a 2-1 win over the Charleston Battery. Akinyola scored the equalizer in the 56th minute. This is his 5th goal in 13 matches for TFC2.
Under 20 qualifying is like November, right?
That sounds about right.
So we should get it fairly soon. Jason Wright is scouting Justin Glad, the 21-year-old American defender for Real Salt Lake. Jason says Justin Glad's September was a tough one. He had to man-mark Zlatan, Quintero, Martinez, and then Nemeth.
Yikes.
While he kept this quartet from getting on the scoreboard, sticking to the players so tightly opened up opportunities for other players to get chances.
It sounds like, from what Jaron said, I didn't include this one, but I guess because he was so focused on man marking, there were times when he man marked too much and thus broke the offside line. Yeah.
Also tough for Glad, he missed out on an international call-up, he did, got trolled by his manager for trying to get on a FIFA cover, and is featured in a new Alcatel commercial where Zlatan is posterising him.
Not great for Justin Glad. Travis Clark and I talked about Justin Glad, and the consensus was we don't know why he doesn't get more looks. So there
for the
you
national
go.
team.
Yes,
Yeah.
we talked about that last week. Another episode of Top Drawer Soccer Show this week with Daryl Grove.
Go subscribe to the Top Drawer Soccer Show, please.
Agreed. Tim Higgins scouting Christopher Nkunku, the 20-year-old midfielder for PSG. Christopher scored against OGC Nice and set up a Neymar goal in that 3-0 beatdown. He was also named to Thomas Tuchel's Champions League squad, though he hasn't seen any time thus far.
Taylor Makaria is scouting Ademola Lookman, the 20-year-old English winger for Everton.
It's a quick one.
Another Everton win and another game sitting on the bench for Ademola Lookman.
Yikes. Shreyas Romani scouting Dan Axel Zagadou, 19-year-old French defender for Borussia Dortmund. Zagadou has been on a bit of a run recently, starting in Dortmund's 7-0 win over Hertha Berlin, decent, and Dortmund's 4-2 comeback win over Bayer Leverkusen alongside TSS favorite Manuel Akanji / Daryl Grove favorite Manuel Akanji. This is after he started a match for Dortmund 2, so even though he was part of a backline that made a few errors recently, it's still better than playing for the youth team.
Fair. Guy Yedwab is scouting Serge Gnabry, the 23-year-old German wide forward for Bayern Munich. Gnabry is still clawing minutes from Frank Ribery. Off the bench, he finally got an assist during Bayern's 1-1 draw with Augsburg. Although he works hard and gets some opportunities in his limited minutes, he'll need to deliver some better production if he wants to start more games going forward. He came off the bench also against Mönchengladbach.
Yep.
He didn't look bad, but he did not have any impact.
There we go. Yeah, well said. Brian Gardner scouting Moise Kean, the 18-year-old Italian Ivorian forward for Juventus. Moise Kean came on for Mario Mandzukic late in Juve's 3-0 win over Swiss side Young Boys in the Champions League. Kean displayed impressive pace and desire to get behind the defense, but still needs to work on his timing and positional awareness as he was twice flagged for offside.
Konstantinos Kaliagas is scouting Georgios Antzoulas, the 18-year-old Greek defender on loan at Fiorentina from Asteras Tripolis.
Well done, Dan.
Antzoulas, just be confident and power through. That's
other than when you said scooting, I think.
Antzoulas has been getting regular minutes in their Campionato Primavera 1, playing the full 90 in their 4-0 win against Chievo and in the 2-0 win against Udinese. However, he then got a red card for denial of goal-scoring opportunity in a 4-1 loss and hasn't seen much time since then as a result.
Up and down report, that one. Katie Castronova scouting Timothy Fosu-Mensah, 20-year-old Dutch defender on loan at Fulham from Manchester United. It has been an eventful, but not good, couple of weeks for TFM. 2 weeks ago against Watford, he put in a bad challenge on Troy Deeney, which courted possible red card controversy. After apologizing to Deeney on Twitter, TFM went on to start against Everton. However, after only 10 minutes, he dislocated his shoulder and will be out for several weeks.
Mazakin Wagner is scouting Andre Onana, the 22-year-old Cameroonian goalkeeper for Ajax. Andre Onana and his Ajax teammates managed an upset, holding Bayern to a 1-1 draw thanks to some excellent backline organisation and an amazing diving save against Arjen Robben in the second minute. Andre Onana has been crucial in the back for Ajax, only allowing 4 goals in 7 games. It seems Ajax has been able to hold on to most of their want-away players over the summer. Oh yeah, so is Ziyech still there. We'll see if they are so lucky next time around.
Yep, I think they only lost Justin Kluivert. I think that was the main departure. Kept everybody else. Well done, Ajax. Dorian Bentancur scouting Lucas Paqueta, 21-year-old Brazilian midfielder for Flamengo. Young Lucas has been touted for big things by Brazil icon Zico, and is currently tasked with leading the Flamengo attack. He did so last week against Bahia, registering more shots than anybody else on the field.
John Roda is scouting Jakob Brun Larsen, the 20-year-old Danish attacker for Borussia Dortmund. Before we read this, I just want to say, I remember thinking, Jakob Brun Larsen's one of those once promising young wingers that I don't think he's going to end up getting near the Dortmund first team. And all that has changed recently.
Yeah, a little bit.
John says, since missing part of the beginning of the season due to another injury, Brun Larsen and Dortmund have hit their stride. In the past 3 games, whenever Brun Larsen has been on the pitch, Dortmund have scored 12 goals, 3 of them from the young Dane himself. He's proven his worth being in the right place at the right time, often cutting in from the left wing and finding himself in the box.
There's a chance that report was sent before this weekend's game, so maybe those numbers need to be adjusted, but they're still pretty impressive nonetheless.
They get adjusted upwards?
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you to everybody for all those scouting reports. Apologies that we didn't get to scouting reports last week. There was the new Rockwell. Welcome to the world. We both
not mine, by the way, to clarify. My brother.
You're now an uncle twice over, right?
5 times over.
5 times over, excuse me. But then we also had a lot of work to get done, so scouting fell apart last week, but we got it back today.
Definitely 5. 3 on my wife's side, 2 on my brother's side. Yeah, there we go.
If you have recently joined the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network and you are waiting for a player, I now have enough time to be able to make some more assignments. So if you're waiting for an assignment, please email me, Daryl@TotalSoccerShow.com. Let me know that you are waiting for your player to be assigned. If you've already done that in the past week or so, I'll be getting to you this week, I promise.
You should definitely just email again with that title, Itchiest Feet this time.
Do that too. Honestly, whatever, that'll help get my attention, honestly.
Yeah.
All caps.
And then if you've already sent the second email, the third one should just be, my feet are gross.
Send those pictures to Taylor at Total Soccer Show. The rest of this week, there's a lot going on, including the US men's national team will play against Colombia. The US women's national team will play against Trinidad. And there's a lot of other international soccer on the horizon, including my beloved England.
Never heard of them.
So we'll be talking about, it's where the game started. We'll be talking about all that later this week on the Total Soccer Show. But first, Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me this evening.
Right back at you, Scotland.
Oh, you did it wrong. Listeners, thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.